Hello, everyone. Welcome to Two Hearts Dance and Yoga's Heart to Heart vlog. It is my pleasure to be able to bring this to you. It's been a long time vision of mine. As the owner of Two Hearts Dance and Yoga and the ultimate movement creator here, my goal is to be able to bring you some light and positivity from my home to yours, and to share with you some of the amazing people that I consider to be a real gem and just a true inspiration in all that they do. And for our first episode here, I'm really happy to be able to share with you a very special guest who is just a star in my eyes. I grew up dancing and competing and performing on Gigi's shows over 30 years now in Southern Maryland. They continue to have that small town charm through performing and competing locally, but also having that top-notch professionalism and talent, ranking with platinum and first place at very top competition circuits nationally. Miss Grace Myles is the center of it all, and it is my pleasure to have her here with us today. So Miss Grace, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you having you here. You have not only been a former dance teacher of mine, but you've been my personal mentor, and I just consider you a part of my family. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome.
Before we kind of get into it, how are things going for your studio in offering virtual classes during this quarantine? Will you continue to have a recital this year, or what's kind of the playing field right now?
Well, it's been a challenge, I think, on both ends. I think the kids are a little burnt out from the virtual classes because they're also getting their education that way as well. So it's not a real outlet for them. And it's hard, as you know, as a teacher, not to have the feedback, from the kids. So you're kind of teaching and you're talking to them and you're hoping that it's still as inspiring as it would be in a classroom. But it's been a real challenge. It takes a little bit longer. You have to set up, you have to plan ahead, of course, as usual. Then you have to upload the video. We do it through videos, and we put it on YouTube through unlisted publication. So I think everybody's just going to be happy when we get back. I know we will too.
There's something like that energy of having someone next to you while you're dancing and having that teacher screaming at
I know, right now you're not
something like
And then
that.
as far as the second part of your question, we are trying to find a venue to have a recital. We're just waiting for the official okay as to where we can have it, what percentage of people can be, there for social distance.
Wonderful. It's great to hear, you're still working on that, and I'm sure, the students will appreciate all the effort that you're putting in to bring them, that recital, whatever form it's in. At least being able to put those costumes on and kind of regroup with your friends and reuniting will be just wonderful for all of them. So
Right.
glad to hear it. So I'm going to take you back a little bit down memory lane. Can you tell us a little bit just how you discovered dance? Was tap dancing always your favorite kind of dance?
Tap dancing was always my favorite. Of course, as most little girls, they want to take dance. And my older sister took dance. So, of course, I wanted to follow in her footsteps. So, I started taking dance at various dance schools, first in DC and moved to Maryland and continued taking dancing. And there would be times when I would skip ballet because I wanted to be there for tap. So it's always been my favorite. So just training through the years, and as I pursued college, I not only did dance but also elementary education at the University of Maryland as well. So.
Go Terps! Woo! What's some of like your early challenges with dance, as being like a student, as being a teacher, just some of the early challenges that you can remember?
Well, I guess, one of the reasons I started teaching dance is because as you have children, you really don't want to be away from them, but yet, you need the extra income. So I started doing like a traveling dancing school, and I would go to daycare centers and teach there. And then that continued through maybe starting at Recreation and Parks when I moved down to St. Mary's County. And then the second year I was teaching through Recreation and Parks, they wanted to treat it like it was any kind of sport where people would register and you would put them all together, same levels in the same class. So that was kind of a challenge. And I think maybe it's time to break away So then I started renting different facilities to continue with my own dancing school. Um, and then I decided to put my carport into a dance studio, which was very small, and I quickly outgrew that. So the biggest challenge was outgrowing my small little carport and taking a chance on storefront. Because you always say, I need so many students in order to pay the rent and to pay the bills, and then am I going to actually make some money from it as well? So that was a thought out challenge, and I'm glad I took a chance on that. But that was a big decision at the time.
Definitely. You just kind of, taking those risks, taking those leaps.
Mhm.
After being a studio for that long, for over 30 years now,
Right.
thinking about where you started and, just trying to get those little bit students to come in and, just trying to make it work. So thanks for sharing that with us. Now that you are, who you are, Miss Grace, and owning that studio that I just so dearly, remembering being a huge part of my childhood. What is your favorite part about owning your own studio?
Well, there's so many, different aspects to it. I mean, one is you're your own boss, so you can kind of set the hours and do what you want to a certain degree. But then it's almost like your own call though, 7 days a week. So, but I think if you have a passion for dance, like I know you do, it's not even a job. It's a hobby that you're able to hopefully make some money from as well. So, I think dealing with the people, watching the students grow is a big part of it as well. Like you were very young when you started. A lot of the kids start when they're 3. They're students until they're 18 and they graduate. And I feel like I'm losing my child, because you come very close to them. And it's always been a very family oriented kind of a studio. We have our show troupe, and then we have our recreation dancers as well. And sometimes the recreation dancers come and go a little bit quicker than the show troupe. And you still, are attached to them, but maybe not as much as you would be with somebody who started at 3 and they graduate, and 15 years later, they're a young woman or a young man. So I think that's the biggest part of it that I really like, is just being a part of the social part of it and seeing the kids grow and how much they progress.
You spend a lot of time in the dance studio.
You do,
Especially
definitely.
on like the competition, you're traveling together, you're in the dressing room getting ready, you're on stage, and then you're doing your homework together at night. So you've really created that space where kids are able to call it almost like it's a second home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what, talking a little bit more about, the business part of things, what would your current self tell your younger self when you first opened the studio? Would you have done anything different? Is there anything that you wish you had known before starting a business or before starting a studio like this?
Well, I think, and of course it was 30 years ago, a lot of things were done with a handshake, and as you continue with any kind of a business, you realize you really should have it in writing because, you have that to fall back on. So I think that I would tell anybody, if you're opening up a studio or any business, to make sure you try to think through everything, talk to people that have studios, and maybe have a guideline and policy that you can fall back on. And every year I add to it because every year something new happens. But that way you can always refer back to it and say, well, I'm sorry, that's not going to be the case because the guidelines say blah, 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 instead of you being kind of the mean guy or the enforcer. You have something that you present in the beginning, what's expected, everything's in writing. So, and I don't think I did that completely when I first started opening. And the other thing would be to always treat everybody fair. And I always tried to do that. Sometimes you become friendly with people. It's better if you're not friends with them, but more friendly. You know what I'm saying?
Very good little tidbits of to use. So what keeps you going through the challenging times? What keeps you, getting up in the morning and continuing to go back into the studio, continuing to keep yourself focused?
Mm-hmm. Have to kind of learn to let it roll off of you sometimes. You have a lot of good things that happen. Of course, there's always challenges. You're dealing with people, so you're always going to have that aspect of trying to please everybody. And I am people pleaser. So especially in the beginning, it would bother me if somebody was unhappy about something. And I remember coming home and I would just rock in that chair and I would say, I would take it personally and I would cry, and I would just say, I just feel so bad. I didn't mean it that way. Or I wish they hadn't interpreted it, or I wish I could be better prepared to make everybody happy, and through the years you learn that you can't please everybody. And again, you fall back on the guidelines and the policies. That's always something you can, remind everybody, well, I'm sorry, but this is what the guidelines say. But if you have like one or two people that are your best friends, you can really talk to about it. That helps, not to share a lot of things with everybody. And I pray a lot. I'll be honest, I pray about it as well, because sometimes that's, main person that can help you, But I think when we both, or, when you have a passion for something, it's just something that keeps you going, because you want to share that passion and you want to think of the positive things that are happening. And a lot of times that's what I reflect back on too, or the people that really genuinely appreciate everything you do. And if you know it's right in your heart, it keeps you going too, because sometimes, like you said, you can't really please everybody. And sometimes it's not your problem, it's their problem,
Yeah, exactly. Good advice. So I know you've seen kind of a lot of different teachers come in. You hire a lot of different teachers. You've even had your son and daughter as teachers, which I love that. But to you, what differentiates a good teacher from a great dance teacher?
I think a good teacher is somebody who shows up at work on time, that has the skills to teach, that's prepared with the combo where, different things each week, and, is presenting her talents to everybody. I think that's a really good teacher. That's what you expect them to do. If you want to be a great teacher, I think, you extend a little bit further into trying to be an inspiration, trying to be a good influence, trying to have a positive impact, on the kids. Again, not being their friend, but being more of a mentor, and trying to just have that passion for not only dance, but for people in general, and, just try to guide them throughout life. Because as being a student of mine, and I'm sure as a teacher, you're the same way, you do try to guide kids especially. And a lot of times adults will tell you their problems and they want to have somebody they can share it with. And, it depends on where you're at. And you just have to have that positivity to guide them in a good direction and hope to be a good influence, with them. I think sometimes some of the kids have told me things they wouldn't tell their parents. And I'm like, oh, too much information, Yeah. But, you don't know if they're sharing it with other people. So as an adult in their life, you want to make sure you answer them properly and guide them in the right direction. And I think one of the biggest compliments I ever got from a parent that was outgoing is thanking me for raising their kid. And I thought, wow, okay, I was a pretty good influence, So,
Yeah.
Like you say, you're at the studio sometimes 3 or 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a good camaraderie, with everybody.
Absolutely. And you've really given that to me. I mean, there's no better example than here. Your passion has been a true reflection of, your students, and vice versa. Just, that passion has passed on to me personally. And I thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. And you've just been, a sweetheart anyway. You're like, one in a million. You are, because I missed it. Your group was called the Elites, and I've only had one other elite group since then, because that's a special title. But you guys were always real special, and you've always kept in touch. So I've always appreciated that. Sure, I feel like I'm a part of your life, not just a dance teacher from the past.
Yeah, you're part of my I was just gonna ask about, the dancers. Yeah, like, have the dancers
I
changed?
think a lot of things have changed in the last 32 years. I just remember my first couple of dance recitals. I don't feel like the kids were as experienced as they are now. They were exposed to a lot of the dance disciplines, or having the staff that we had. But yet the audience were like excited about seeing their kids on dancing, and the kids were really excited about sharing their talents. And I don't know, it just felt so good most of the time. You would get standing ovations, and afterwards people would just be so full of gratitude. And I'm thought, wow. And then I look at what we're doing today and what we're providing so much more. And the kids are getting so much more experience. Outside choreographers are coming in, and it's just not the same. I think, the kids nowadays are feeling more entitled, they deserve things a little bit more than, kids in the past. And maybe technology has something to do with it, because 32 years ago, not everybody had a phone, hardly anybody did. So, they weren't exposed or had all these video games and all these opportunities that kids nowadays sometimes I think are overload. So they looked forward to coming to dance. It was like an outlet. It was like, wow, I get to go to dance, I don't feel that all the time now. I think the kids like it, but I think sometimes the parents are kind of pushing them towards, taking the dance. And I think they like the shows. People forget to say thank you. I don't know. I don't know if it's because they think, oh, I've paid you tuition. I don't need to give you any kind of thank you. And, so it's a little different. So I always feel like if I haven't heard from anybody, that means they're happy because they're not complaining. Because you will always hear from somebody if they have a complaint, unfortunately. So it's a good week when nobody's complained, then, everybody's happy or satisfied or content, but so I do see a big difference over the past 32 years, with parents and kids.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the parents I've had about 25 to 30 people drop out since COVID hit us.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, my kid doesn't want to do online classes. And it's a little bit more of an effort, and I remember when I taught preschool years ago, when Justin was even a little boy. And, I would say, I've got a great idea. And the kids would go, what? And it could be something just really simple. Like today we're going to be able to do like online classes because we can't have them at the studio. And I can sit with you and watch you. Isn't that great? And they would go, yeah, that's super, So it's all in the presentation.
What do you think, kind of the future is?
I'm sure the competition people are struggling as well. And, a lot of times we've already paid our money into it. So a lot of them want us to keep a credit. And we are keeping a credit for next year, except for the graduating seniors, and they're refunding their money. Right. But, I'm hoping from all of this that people will appreciate some of the things that have been taken away from us temporarily. And maybe there'll be a better attitude, because like you say, preparing for competitions requires extra time, extra rehearsal, extra effort, sacrificing some other things that you may want to do, and again, kids nowadays are not as agreeable to these things as they were years ago. So I'm hoping that maybe, I feel bad for the graduating seniors because, like you say, everything was stripped from them. They didn't even get a graduation ceremony. They didn't get a prom. I think we did one competition, and we had 4 others planned, that would include a finals. All of them were canceled. So, and that's what they strive for. They love the competitions. They love to go and perform and get critiqued and win awards. And, that's just a real big part of being in show troupe. So I hope that they're going to be able to come back next year, but who knows, it's kind of scary to think about what could or could not happen in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I think the arts in general is suffering from this particularly. It's from, small dance studios to even people who are on Broadway, not being able to perform and do, if your livelihood depends on you being on that stage and you're not there, it's just a big dagger to all, arts kind of production. Mm-hmm. World, but hopefully we can come out of this stronger. I think people miss those things. I know I do. You miss going to see people perform. You miss being able to go to a theater and really enjoy a show. You miss going to local recitals and being able to see the kids perform. So I hope out of all this, people understand how much the arts is important and how much joy and life and just light that it brings to people's lives. So hopefully we get to see that soon again. Just definitely missing it. I've always been inspired by you, having created your business and having that passion and being able to share it with your family. Justin has been a huge inspiration to me with, touring, Stomp, being with Stomp and Tap Dogs, and then still being able to be very heavily involved in your studio and putting together pieces for the students and doing things for the recital. And then, of course, Lisa, she was my teacher, so it's really that legacy with the rest of your family members.
It has its pros and its cons. I think it's been really neat to have my kids involved. It's
Oh, and Jesse, I forgot about Jesse because,
oh, that's right, yeah,
such a
and Jesse too.
and now he's all grown up.
Yeah, 22 years old.
Oh my
A
goodness.
little baby in diapers.
He's dancing and out in LA, right?
Yes, he's out. He's loving it out there. He loves the hip hop is his discipline, and I think it has brought us together more as a family. It's fun. We're bonding, and it gives us something we can do together. It seemed like Thanksgiving dinner we always talked about Holly Jolly. You remember the Holly Jolly shows? And so that was always a topic of conversation. So it's been great having them, I think, as a part. It's been more positive than it has negative. Every time at recital, Justin and I always get into an argument. It's just part of it. We always, disagree, but we always come together. We work well together. It's been really fun to choreograph things with him. And then, of course, Lisa loves doing her exercise programs, so she's always been a part of all of the curriculum and, doing her own thing as well now because she's got her own business as well.
Awesome.
But they both have always made time for me. And, of course, Jason, my other son, people have said, oh, you have another son, once in a while he jumps in, he'll take a drumming class or he'll take tap once in a while too. But he was more expertise in sports. That was his thing. So, but I guess, dancing was part of our family, just like brushing your teeth. It was just like, everybody kind of knew that, this was a dance family. And they've always been involved in some aspect. So.
Good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's really just good to connect with you, and I'm glad, you're able to share this with us. Really, look forward to seeing you again in person soon.
I know. I miss you.
Because I hope to be able to come to the recital. It always kind of gives me flashbacks of being on that stage and, all the hard work that it took to get to recital and the competitions and everything. Just, great memories of my childhood. So thank you for continuing to spread that to all the other little kids that are growing up now.
I mean, it's a little bit different than when you took because it started out with maybe you would have to take tap and jazz, ballet and tap. Now they're doing a lot more. They're at the studio maybe 3 days a week. They're taking leaps and turns and ballet and jazz technique and contemporary and tap technique and, choreography classes and rehearsal classes. So it's gotten a lot more involved because competitions have actually, increased, in their skillful levels. So a lot of people have like outside choreographers coming in and putting and placing, choreography. So it's just gotten so advanced, So I'm really lucky to have Justin on board because, a lot of times, even when he was on tour, he would come home and he would set pieces like in the summer. And then he would just send them as quickly as we could have him do it and videotape, have other teachers learn it. And then we would have rehearsal time and then we'd have all year to clean it up. But that's how intense it's gotten to be. So.
The dance scene is just so competitive now. And it's that, you're able to provide that training so that, these kids can move on and, show up to an audition at Broadway or show up to, go to LA and start to take classes and they feel like, they're not intimidated because they have that training. It's about, giving them the tools where they can dance anywhere. And, I admire that.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a long time coming. You start out and you get to this point. So it's, and, hiring more teachers too. We have a lot of good teachers on staff. I think everybody has their specialty and we all work together. And I really do feel like I have a good staff. They work together. And, I think everybody has the best interest of the kids at heart, which is good. That's what I'm just trying to get through, the recital this year. This has probably been the most challenging thing that's ever happened, I think, to all of us. And I think I could deal with it a little bit easier if I could get some real answers. I start with the governor's office, and then, it filters down to the local governments, and then it comes back to, well, you should call the governor's office, So that's what's so tricky, is I think it's very vague. And I'm sure you've experienced, all of us in the arts, like you say, have suffered, but this has probably been the biggest challenge. So just hoping to have a recital.
Hang in there. But
Yeah.
people can visit you. Is it www.Gracie's Guys and Gals Dance Studio?
Yeah, it's all spelled out, graciesguysandgalsdancestudio.com. You're welcome, Leanne. It's been fun talking to you. I love watching your little videos on Facebook, and, I love the way you always, give me more credit than I deserve.
Trust me, I wouldn't be anywhere where I'm at in the dance scene if it wasn't for your studio. So thank you so much. And God bless. Hopefully we can get through this quarantine and start dancing in class again together.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Grace.